Welcome to the Striver's Compass. I'm Derek Pilling. This is a space for us to talk about the intersection of ambition and wisdom, a place for us to learn to pursue success with greater purpose and harmony. And seeing as how striving is so central to everything we're going to be talking about here, I wanted to do an episode specifically on the very nature of the thing. What is striving? What are its roots? Its evolutionary foundations, psychological underpinnings, and how do we express it in a modern world? So let's talk about striving. We all have our own story about why we strive. I certainly do. If you're like me, maybe your parents set high expectations for you. Maybe youth sports taught you how to be competitive. Maybe you found your sense of self-worth as a youth in grades or the approval of a teacher. Those stories really help us understand our own experience of striving. But they don't really explain why we strive. I think they miss something much deeper. And it turns out that striving isn't really something that we learn through experience or develop over time. It's innate to our humanity. It's really a part of our very nature. We are quite literally designed to strive. You know, if you think back on this from an evolutionary perspective and think about our ancestors running across the savannah, they didn't have 5-year plans or OKRs or KPIs. They had survival problems. They had to find food, build shelter, and find belonging in a community because there was strength in numbers. The ones who kept moving forward, despite hardship and fatigue and fear, well, they survived. And they passed on genes, ultimately, that favored persistence and effort. Eventually, over time, our brains evolved, and they developed systems to reward our striving. So it's no surprise that when we move toward a goal, whether that's hunting for a meal or finishing a report, our brains release dopamine. That little hit isn't the reward for arriving. It's the reward for progress. It's quite literally our physiology's way of saying to us, good job, yes, keep going. So if you ever wondered why you can't rest after a big win, it's because your wiring isn't built for stillness or savoring. It's built for pursuit. It's built for what's next. The drives that kept us alive on the savannah didn't just disappear. They're still with us. And they found new outlets in a modern world. Back then, accumulating resources meant survival. Today, we still chase accumulation. Only the objects we accumulate have changed. So think about it. Food became wealth. Tribal rank became job title. Physical dominance became social status. Reproductive fitness became the pursuit of beauty and youth. Our ancestors competed for scarce resources. We're now competing for the symbols of them: power, influence, and prestige. So when any of us spends decades climbing the corporate ladder or feels restless until their bank account hits a certain number, or even refreshes a social media post to check how many likes it got, That is our ancient circuitry firing. It's the same survival engine revealing itself through modern markers. We're still hunting. We've just swapped a spear for a suitcase. Here's the thing we'd all be really wise to remember. The environment has definitely changed, but our wiring hasn't. We don't need to fight for food every day, but those same drives for achievement, status, and belonging are still there. So we direct them into modern jungles, careers, startups, marathons, follower counts. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, right? This is what makes us human. And we need to know that not all striving is equal. And some forms of striving nourish us, whereas others can quietly drain us. So let's bring some scientific context to this. Modern psychology, especially through what's called self-determination theory, shows us that when we thrive, our striving meets three basic needs: competence, the need to feel capable; autonomy, the need to feel in control of our actions; and relatedness, the need to feel connected to others. So when our actions serve those needs, our striving feels energizing, authentic, positive. These things help us get better every day, not because somebody told us to, but because our actions are aligning with something meaningful inside of us. Conversely, self-determination theory also shows that when we chase money, status, fame, or perfection, striving flips on us. It becomes burnout disguised as purpose. We start pushing harder, but feeling emptier because the goal is no longer authentic. It's no longer growth. It's some form of validation instead. Healthy striving isn't about proving your worth. It's about knowing your worth and choosing to do the work to get a little bit better every single day. A little bit stronger, a little bit clearer, and a little bit more in alignment with what you value. Now, this begs some pretty important questions that I would encourage you to ask. Namely, what are you striving for? And why? The psychologist Viktor Frankl saw this really, really clearly. After surviving the concentration camps, he wrote that what keeps us alive isn't pleasure or power, but the pursuit of meaning. He called it the will to meaning, an innate drive to make sense of our existence and to contribute to something that's beyond ourselves. Meaning transforms striving from mere survival into significance. It gives the ancient instinct a modern aim. Now, modern psychologists aren't the first to have wrestled with our striving nature. Stoic philosophers 2,000 years ago were wrestling with the same questions. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." So they appreciated the value of striving. But Aurelius also warned us against striving for things that are outside of our control, what the Stoics called externals. As with Frankl, the Stoic answer wasn't to stop striving. No, it was to redirect that striving in a productive way, namely, in their case, to channel our efforts toward virtues. The four core Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. In other words, Strive for the kind of individual excellence that depends only on you. In the Stoic case, the goal wasn't the result. Rather, what they strove for is to actualize our innate human goodness, which for them was all about aligning our action with our values. So, for example, someone who fails to achieve a goal but is virtuous in its pursuit will have succeeded by their measurement. Likewise, one who achieves by violating their virtues has failed. Striving becomes a practice, a daily act of living in accordance with our values. So, as you reflect on all of this, the real question to untangle here isn't whether we should or shouldn't strive. Of course we should, it's part of our nature. The question is really how we can do it consciously and in a way that is productive and positive. Our ancestors needed striving to survive. We don't. But we do need it to get better every day, to grow, to create, to connect, to sharpen who we are through our self-directed effort. Every act of striving is a commitment to improvement. It's a way of saying, I can be a little stronger, a little wiser, a little truer than I was yesterday. That's what makes it human. It's how our potential turns into progress. So the next time you feel that restless energy, that urge to push harder, to go further, to do more, embrace it. That impulse is part of your nature. Just be sure to pay attention to what it's asking for. The path to fulfillment goes through directing your striving toward things that enhance your competence, develop your autonomy, and cultivate relatedness to others, not to chasing externals. We are, all of us, designed to strive, but even more so, we're designed to grow. Until next time, strive wisely.